Just a second, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. A very warm evening to everybody, the respected speakers, participants across the world, and of course, all other viewers pan the world. Yeah, we all go through difficult times, right? Then now here is a day when we have come to a point to discuss all those difficulties and of course possible solutions and so much here. And it can be a healthy reaction to feeling, negative emotions when facing challenges. We live different lives, but there are certain factors that will affect our mental health and influence how we think and respond to challenges and opportunities. We all respond to our experiences differently. There's no single right way to react. Being aware of how challenges in life can affect our mental health make it easier to understand when we or someone we care about are struggling. Some of us are more deeply affected by events than others. How we deal with things can also depend on how well other parts of our life are going on or how well supported we feel. So without any further ado, let's hear it all about the topic Where Mind Matters in today's webinar organized by Delhi Public School Howrah, live to all our audience out there across the country and the globe. We have eminent speakers from the related spheres of life and young minds from across the world who will be retrospecting into this conference on positive minds. To welcome our honorable guest speakers and judges, may I call upon the second, our principal, ma'am, Sunita Arora, who is the pioneer behind this virtual conference. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Mental health has always been an extremely relevant topic of discussion. And with the pandemic overhauling our lives, positive mental health has become the need of the hour. We cannot ignore the taboo still attached with the mental health. Keeping this fact at the backdrop, we at DPS Howrah are here today with young minds from across the globe who would be discussing, deliberating, and addressing some very thought-provoking issues, delving into the myths, effects, threats, and possible solutions to bring about the awareness about positive mental health. We are honored to have amongst us our guest speakers who are at the helm of their profession. May I introduce Dr. Debashish Ray. He has been a practicing psychiatrist of Kolkata, India, with 27 years of experience. He has been a member of the research committee of the International Society of Bipolar Disorders, editor of the Bengal Journal of Psychiatry from 1994 to 96, two times winner of the Best Paper Award of the East Zone Conference of the Indian Psychiatric Society, winner of the Bombay Psychiatric Society Silver Jubilee Award 93. He has several national and international publications and citations. His special interests include biological psychiatry, bipolar disorders, molecular psychiatry, translational psychiatry, and psychopharmacology. Welcome, Dr. Ray.
Hi, thanks very much.
We welcome Mr. Amitabh Mohan, another popular name as a leading psychologist counselor in India and abroad. He is also a trainer, educationist, and life coach, CEO of Human Learning System India. And I hope he can give some of his fundas. He's very good at it. Welcome, Mr. Mohan.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Bhavin Shah, an educational influencer connected to all educational spheres, presently the CEO of Education World's #1 education news and analysis magazine. And he is a man who's always on the move. He's in Delhi now. In a few minutes, he's going to be up in the air towards Mumbai. And this is also where his job profile is concerned. He's everywhere. Welcome, all of you. And
thank you, Ms.
Yeah, back to Meeta.
Yes, ma'am. I also take this opportunity to introduce our learned judges for the day who will be observing and, of course, commenting on our speakers. We have Ms. Rashmi Mantri, who is a practicing rehabilitation professional and a special educator registered under the Rehabilitation Council of India. She is the SVT of Inclusive Education at APG School, Kolkata. Welcome, Ma'am Rashmi Mantri.
Thank you, ma'am, and good evening to everyone.
Good evening to you too. We also have amongst us Dr. Kanchana Ramachandran from UK, who is an international fellow psychiatry who works with child psychiatry there in the United Kingdom. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
We also have amongst us Ms. Shantini Mukherjee, a clinical psychologist and psychoanalyst currently working at Antra Psychiatric Hospital and Happy Minds Clinic, Kolkata. We welcome you, Shantini, ma'am. Ma'am, I guess your mic is muted. Shantini, we could not hear you, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I've unmuted it. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yeah.
I also take this opportunity to thank all school principals and parents for encouraging the young minds to participate in this conference. I now hand over the session to Palash Chaturvedi, our moderator for the day. Palash, please do the needful. Please introduce yourself and then carry on with the program. Thank you so much, Palash.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a good time. So it's not evening everywhere, I think. In some places, the time is different. So whatever time it is, a good day to everyone. So welcome all the judges, welcome the guest speakers. So I'm Palash Chaturvedi, and I'm a Dastango. I'm a storyteller by profession. I'm a brand consultant. And stories have a lot to do with mental health. We all have our stories. We all keep telling our stories to different people. We want to tell our stories to different people. Our stories are a place where our well-being exists, actually, because when we have to escape from reality, we take the cushion of stories. So let us start today's discussion. First of all, I would like to introduce you to the idea of yoga from the Patanjali Sutra. The first sutra of Patanjali says yogas chitta vritti nirodha. So yoga is a way to remove the fluctuations of the mind. So I hope we can do this activity and we can reach a point where we can understand each other well, and we can remove the fluctuations of our mind and understand each other well. So let us start the event with, I would like to welcome Dr. Debashish Ray. Sir, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir.
Wow.
Thank you. So, sir, I would like to talk about positive mental health, because I think we talk a lot about mental illness, but it is very important to know the ideal situation, like what do we want to achieve? What are the aspects that make us mentally healthy? So, sir, what is positive mental health? What does it look like? And who, according to you, is a mentally healthy person?
1 minute. Sorry, Dr. Ray. I think Mr. Shah will be.
Okay, yeah.
Can we ask the first question to Mr. Shah? Because he is in the airport and his flight is like in half an hour's
Okay.
time. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Sorry.
Mr. Shah?
Palash, about this, but I'm on wheels and now I'm going to be getting on the air wheels.
No
So
issues.
kindly excuse me for this. Sorry
No,
about that.
we do understand the stress position you are in at the moment.
Let us relieve you of some stress as we can. So, let's talk about, since you're traveling, you'll be wearing the PPE kit or the mask and everything in a few minutes. So after the pandemic situation, uh, when we meet students on the physical background, when we meet them physically, how are we going to bridge the gap of the lack of interactions that we had this through these technical mediums? Like in a lot of offices, we have a day, no email day, where people go and talk to each other. So that interaction is really important. So after the pandemic, when we meet the students, how do you think we are going to bridge the gap and make up for the learning loss physically, mentally, and emotionally?
That's a very important and relevant in this space where we are about to come out from the COVID position, and we are trying to prepare ourselves to for obviously the challenges that we have learned in past year and the new challenges that are going to be coming ahead. And to set the context, Palash and Ms. Arora and the entire DPS Howrah family, and to each and every educators and my young friends who are listening to this webinar, it's very important to understand the each and everyone's responsibility uh, when the situation arises. And in order to know, or in order to know or measure the entire situation, one has to also understand saying what data we are living in. And to the context of India, which could be different for other countries, you have to understand that we have more than 3 lakh preschools. We have more than 1.6 million K-12 schools, 40,000 colleges, and over and about 1,000 universities. Put to context, when you're talking of the learning loss, uh, particularly in UK, the Royal British University and the Society have already calculated in UK, they are going to be like backwards for more than 60 years, the amount of learning loss that the country has got. And if you really want to calculate about India, I don't know what learning loss we are talking about. And moreover, the challenges that we are facing to the emotional well-being, there is no yet measurement or a tool that has been invented to really calculate about that. One has to understand very importantly that yes, during pandemic, importantly what is learned is that we adopted the online methodology. We went on to now be prepared for the hybrid way. But let me tell to all of my young friends, and particularly to the students that I'm meeting now when I'm going to schools and somewhere wherever the 10th and 12th have started, I'm telling you, the students of the last year who haven't seen each other, and it probably by appearing their exam, they are not going to, which is online, or the way they are going to be facing the last 2 months, they are going through a different trauma altogether apart from the academic pressure that they are going through. They haven't seen their friends, and probably this is the last chance to meet their friends, because then they're going to be dispersed and they are not going to be together again. And the biggest strata which is not been measured are the early years. These all students have, I mean, someone who's just going to get into the schooling system, for them, the screen is the school. Probably when they're going to be back, or when parents are going to drop them to the school, I want to see the reaction of the early years teachers and the kind of environment that they are going to be prepared to receive their students. It's going to be absolutely a new challenge for them. To me, the social emotional balance that these teachers and the entire education fraternity have to be prepared is going to be humongous. The kind of numbers that we are talking of, I'm sure if suppose any of the authorities and policymakers, which we have been talking since past 9 months, they listen to it, the better they be prepared for the damage that they are doing to the country. While things are opening up, they have been not supportive enough to particularly to the private educators. Obviously, government schools, you can't think of the loss that government school is going to be going through, because for them, the scene to prepare themselves is beyond any imagination. So it's very, very important to know that all the stakeholders, that is educators, parents, students, and policymakers, are cognizant about the fact that there is already learning loss, there is already an emotional disbalance that has been created. If at all they have to come back to system, it's important that they help each other, not only in the financial way, but also support with all kind of messaging, packaging that has to be done to bring back this student to what is collaborative and the learning experiences that this student community need, but also help the educators to really bridge this gap and come forward for creating this lucrative environment that now we are going to be back in the system. So for me, I think so all the stakeholders have equal responsibility and everyone has to know about their responsibility, that it's not only about the policymakers or it's not only about the educators or only the students. We have to come together, have a united voice and make appeal to all the stakeholders to see to that this learning loss and the emotional disbalance does not really exceed beyond a point. Otherwise, this damage is irreparable. This is no one can rewind this cassette and repair it. So that would be my humble submission to all the listeners, that it's high time that when we come back, all the support has to be coming all across. It's not about one, but it's about all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for such profound insights. And actually, it's a very humongous issue that we are facing, and uh, like it's going to be a collective responsibility of the entire society, because the especially for the students, it's a very crucial time of their learning learning process, uh, and especially the emotional aspect, because they can get a lot of information from a lot of sources, but the emotional health and the mental health, even the physical health, they are not being able to play and go out in the open, travel. That is also a very important part of the learning process. So thank you so much, sir. Hope you have a nice flight. Happy journey to you.
Thank you very much all, and I'm extremely sorry for this, but I need to catch my flight. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Arora. Thank you, the DPS Howrah family. Thank you, Amitabh and all the panelists. Please have a wonderful, insightful evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Safe journey. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Debashish, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So,
what was your question?
Sir, as Vincent van Gogh said, that yellow color is something that reminds him of optimism, and he used to drink yellow color. That's why I painted the walls in my house yellow. So, right. Let's talk about positivity. We know that there are a lot of problems, there are a lot of issues that we have to face. Now, what is positive mental health? What does it look like, and who will you term as a mentally healthy person?
Yeah, let's have a minor diversion at the outset. Mr. Chaturvedi, are you staying in West Bengal?
Yes, sir, I'm in West Bengal.
Okay. The color apparently of optimism is blue, not yellow.
Okay.
By the way. Okay. Sorry. So the issues over here are, I really commend the organizers about, and thank the organizers for choosing me, and also making a right choice. Look at the topic, mind matters. The germ of today's discussion lies in the topic. Your seminal presentation of the context. One, I also thank the organizers for making some wrong choices. The first wrong choice is me. I'm not probably professionally capable of speaking to an audience of this age group, because I'm essentially an adult clinical biological psychiatrist. The second wrong choice are the terms like mental health. Where is your mind? Is it in Nobanno? Or is it in the parliament? It's down here. As you have said, mind matters. The mind is matter, and matter is mind. we already have something called the organ of mind, which consists of a number of brain structures. I'm not going into the details about that. At the outset, you asked me about who is mentally healthy. Health, as like a lot of other constructs, is a statistical average. Normalcy, statistical average. But there are exceptions. If there are 27 states in a country, provinces in a country, and there's only one chief minister of that country, of one state, the chief minister of only one state wears Hawaii chappals, that doesn't mean that chief minister is abnormal. But normalcy and health both should be considered as statistical averages. And this statistical average changes over time, changes from place to place. The term mental health should not be separated from physical health. In fact, mental health governs physical health. You must be well aware of the adage that mens sana in corpora sano, a healthy mind in a healthy body. If you look at World Health Organization's definition of mental health, every one of us must be aware of that. That is only positivity and nothing else. But even then, the definition is incomplete. Do we have any politicians here? Mr. Chaturvedi?
No, sir.
Okay, so all of us are over here human beings. So what I wanted to tell you is, what is a human being? A human organism is one such unique organism where the internal environment, your body, your brain, your brain is a part of your body, where the internal environment is constantly interacting with your external environment. And the better is this marriage, the better is this coupling, the more positive, so-called positive, is your mental health. So this equilibrium has to be maintained. Its mental health is never a static concept. It's always dynamic. What was your mental health when you were 4 years is not your mental health today. On Jan 30th, 2022, will not be your mental health 5 years down the line. Okay? So this dynamicity, in this dynamicity lies the positivity. And how do we achieve this equilibrium? The question is no definitions. When we were born, we didn't have books. When we are going to die, we are not going to have books. We're going to have ourselves. I tell my junior psychiatrists sometimes that the patients make our textbooks. Similarly, this dynamicity also varies from one individual to another. Okay? So it varies from the cow dung group to the, to the Maoist group. It's always relative, and it's always particulate. And it depends on you. So the first thing that you have to do in order to say hi to your mind is to know your mind. The more sacred people called it introspection. Once you start knowing yourself, how many of us give at least 5 minutes a day to ourselves in the strictest sense of the term? You start knowing yourself, know your assets, know your deficits, know your skills, know your immediate challenges. and then you start coping with stress. You know, the word stress, how does it come from? It comes from a Latin word called stringo. Can you see this, Mr. Chaturvedi? It's all yellow, your favorite color.
Yes, sir.
Hmm? This is just a rubber band. So our mind is like a rubber band. I'm stretching. Now look, it snapped. As long as it could withstand the stretch, the stretching, you are equanimous. You had wellness. When the moment you could not cope with the stress, it snapped. What we will have to do is to build a strength so that it doesn't snap. This building of strength is called resilience or emotional resilience. And this is the cornerstone of all positive mental health. Be it COVID, be it corruption, be it any sort of a natural calamity, be it whatever, be it even a family squabble in which you're involved, whatever it is. So, for the honorable guests today who will be participating in a contest, I probably have only three things how they can improve their mental health. Live and let live, not the Bond movie. It is not always right to do what one has a right to do, and do as you're done by. I hope I've taken a lot of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you for enlightening us, sir. That was really insightful and very profound. And uh, actually, I think as far as the colors are concerned, uh, it's also, I think, as you said, it's also something that is a part of our internal self. The way we see colors, the
That is
external things
true.
keep
Yes.
changing, and that's how we react to things. Because
Yeah.
Picasso had the blue period when he was going through depression.
Yes.
So
Now,
that is
if I can interrupt you, we use this
yes,
yellow
sir.
light for a lot of positive psychotherapies.
Yeah.
That is true.
But as you said, it's an individual journey for everyone,
Right.
and the introspection part is the most important. Uh, and we have to build our minds in such a way that we can deal with whatever life throws at us.
Yeah.
Uh, Thank you so much, sir. Uh,
Pleasure.
Now I would like to welcome Amitabh, sir, Mr. Amitabh Mohan, sir.
You would, is there any question directed, or I just need to speak my mind out?
Uh, there is
No, I'll go ahead. No, it's okay. Absolutely fine. We go with the theme for the day, that mind matters. And I've been listening to my previous speakers with their very profound thoughts. And while listening to all these thoughts, I'm basically from Uttar Pradesh, Lucknow, and of course, we now having base in different places. So थोड़ा शेर और शायरी जहन में आती है, बचपन में लिखा करते थे. So there are a few lines which I've written during my school days, during growing up years, and I would like to begin my deliberation with these lines where I've written, दर्द भरे होठों से दर्द भरे होठों से ऐसे मुस्कुराते हैं वो आजकल कि अश्रु भी गालों के स्पर्श से शर्माते हैं आजकल. There are a lot of people who have the pain inside which they are trying to hide. दर्द भरे होठों से ऐसे मुस्कुराते हैं आजकल कि अश्रु भी गालों के स्पर्श से शर्माते हैं आजकल. People are hesitating in expressing their pain, and that is the problem. And that is where, friends, your mind matters. When we talk about mental health, mind matters. Sunita ma'am said that, our moderator for the day also mentioned that, and I would like the MK of the Mohanga Funda that I would like to insist upon today is be kind to your mind. अपने जहन को, अपने मन को थोड़ा सा इज्जत दीजिए, थोड़ा सा तवज्जो दीजिए. It's important that you value your own being. expanding on those lines further, दर्द भरे होठों से ऐसे मुस्कुराते हैं वो आजकल कि अशुभी गालों के स्पर्श से शर्माते हैं आजकल। दर्द के पुजारी हैं ये, दर्द के पुजारी हैं ये, इनका मुस्कुराना भी जरूरी है। Respect your pain, right? Because dard hai, ye emotion hai. It is your emotion is part of your life. If you and I do not have emotion, we are not humans. And that is where we need to value every kind of emotion that we have. एक बहुत पुरानी फिल्म थी, उसका गाना था बड़ा खूबसूरत सा, जब दर्द नहीं था सीने में तो खाक मजा था जीने में. Life will become very monotonous if you do not have pain. हम लोग कहते हैं ना कि खुशी का एहसास तभी होता है जब दर्द होता है. जब दर्द ही नहीं है तो फर्क कैसे करेंगे? And that is where we get a bit of a pain and we get the stress. We invite the stress. कि कहीं मेरे को depression तो नहीं हो रहा है. And today, when we are talking about this theme of mind matters, to all my young friends, I would like to insist semantics does matter. We indulge in self-talk. Psychology में हम उसको बोलते हैं auto-suggestion. आप अपने आप से कैसी बातें करते हो? A little while earlier, Dr. Saab was talking about positive mental health. Positive mental health is very much dependent on what kind of self-talk you and I are indulging in. How are we perceiving the various situations in life that we have? जिंदगी में जो उतार चढ़ाव आते हैं, situations आती हैं, how we receive them, how we perceive them, how we respond and react to them, that becomes very, very important. And that is where your mind matters. क्योंकि ये जो आपका ज़हन है, ये आपका जो मन है, ये हर समय काम करता है. और आपकी जो सेल्फ टॉक है, वो उसको इंस्ट्रक्शन देती है कि कैसे काम करो. Your mind gets instruction through your self-talk to work in a particular way, to behave in a particular way, to perceive in a particular way, to do the filtering of the stimuli, whether visual or audio, whatever stimulus you're getting and the experience you're getting, your mind tends to filter it and it tends to perceive. और दिमाग जैसे दिखाता है हम वैसे देखते हैं, दिमाग जैसे सोचने को कहता है हम वैसे सोचने लगते हैं, और हम जैसे अपने आप से बातें करते हैं अक्सर दिमाग वैसे ही सोचता है. और ये जो डिप्रेशन है, एक शब्द जो यंगस्टर्स में हम सभी लोग, आई थिंक बचपन से अगर एक शब्द का हमने बहुत इस्तेमाल किया है in the context of mental health, which is very important, is depression. And I personally feel it has been used, overused, misused and abused. And when I'm saying that जरा सा भी कुछ दर्द होता है, हम कहते यार मेरे को डिप्रेशन हो गया यार, बड़ा टेंशन हो रहा है, बड़ा डिप्रेशन हो गया, राइट? और ये जो टेंशन और डिप्रेशन जो हम बोलते हैं, तो जरा सी मुश्किल को भी हम डिप्रेशन का नाम दे देते हैं. तो बेचारे हम जैसे साइकोलॉजिस्ट और साइकेट्रिस्ट, हम तो डायग्नोसिस की जरूरत ही नहीं है. ये तो वैसे ही हो गया कि हम डॉक्टर्स ने बेचारों ने इतने साल मेहनत करी और हम कहते अरे हम तो गूगल पढ़ करके ज्ञानी हो गए. और बुखार है तो एक हमारे दोस्त मॉडरेटर आज के स्टोरी टेलर है और दास्तानों में बात करते हैं, और एक छोटा सा किस्सा वाकया याद आ रहा है. एक अस्पताल में मरीज बेड पे बैठा हुआ है और उसके आसपास 4-5 उसको देखने वाले आए. उसमें से एक बताता है होम्योपैथिक नुस्खा. One tells a homeopathic remedy, another one tells a allopathic remedy, another one tells a Ayurvedic remedy, and another one gives a they use all 4 people, 4 pathies are advices ready there. And there's one person who's quietly observing and listening to everyone and looking at the person. Now the question to all of you is, out of these 5 people, can you tell me who's the professional, who's the doctor? The one who was quiet. Everyone else is ready with advice. And that's the problem with us. that हम लोग इतनी सारी चीजें पढ़ लेते हैं, सोच लेते हैं, व्हाट्सएप पे देख लेते हैं और हमको लगता है कि हमको सब पता है और फिर वहीं पे हम अपनी एंजाइटीज को और बिल्ड करते चले जाते हैं. Half information is a problem, friends. And you know, there is. I remember it's been almost 3 decades that I'm practicing in the field of psychology now. And when I started my career as a psychologist, one of the biggest challenge in the beginning was that क्यों कोई हमारे पास आए? Why should anyone come to us? Because everyone was operating at that point of time in that period. कि अगर साइकोलॉजिस्ट के पास जा रहे हो या साइकेट्रिस्ट के पास जा रहे हो, इसका मतलब तुम्हारे दिमाग में कोई प्रॉब्लम है क्या? तुम are you mentally sane or not? That was the kind of a myth that people were living with at that point of time, and that was the biggest challenge. And trust me, friends, it's far from over. Things have become much better in these 3 decades. We are much more aware. There's a greater acceptance of the situation, but this myth still prevails. And that is why a lot of people do not seek help when they need help. हमको परेशान, almost 2 out of 3 people, हर 3 में से 2 लोग have some mental health concern. और ये वैसे ही है कि हम, each one of us have some physiological health concern. किसी ना किसी को जुकाम, खांसी, बुखार होता रहता है. जरूरी नहीं कि बीमारी बड़ी हो, लेकिन अगर बुखार को समय पर इलाज नहीं मिला तो वो problems create करता है. Even Dr. Saab would correct me with my limited knowledge of allopathic treatment. I'm daring to share an observation here. जब हमको viral fever होता है तो डॉक्टर एंटीबायोटिक देते हैं. Antibiotic means antibacterial. Infection is viral. Medicine given is antibacterial. So it is that medicine is not given to cure the virus, because virus will die its own death. But when your body is infected with a virus, it can cause a lot of secondary infection, where you need antibiotic to prevent you from that. And that is where it is preventive. Similarly, in the context of mental health, it is very important to understand that, there may be just one thought, that niggling thought, which you're not able to overcome yourself. That is the virus. It will take its own time. But while that thought is sustaining itself for a longer period of time, it will attract a lot of secondary thoughts, and that can cause a lot of situations for you. And that is why timely intervention is important. Friends, I very strongly urge upon all of you, your mind matters. Seek help when you need help. मदद लेना कोई भी बुरी चीज नहीं है. मदद लेना का मतलब ये बिल्कुल भी नहीं कि आप बहुत कमजोर हो. इनफैक्ट मदद लेने का मतलब ये है कि आप में ताकत है कि आप मदद ले सको. Your ability to seek help when you need help is about your mental strength. It is not about your mental weakness. And that is what you and I need to analyze. And जैसे ही हमको कुछ भी थोड़ा सा, we go on the net and we say, हाँ मेरे को ये भी हो सकता है, ये भी हो सकता है. Then there are 2 kinds of people, 2 kinds of response. One says, हाँ मुझे पता है, so deal कर लेंगे. डील कर लेते हैं, बहुत अच्छी बात है. नहीं डील कर पा रहे हैं, go to a professional. On the other side, आधी इंफॉर्मेशन पढ़ के, अरे ये भी सिम्टम है, ये भी सिम्टम है, मतलब मेरे को कोई बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम हो गई. एंड वी फर्दर गेट इनटू दैट नेगेटिव स्पाइरल. एंड ट्रस्ट मी, जब हम लोग साइकोलॉजी पढ़ा करते थे एज स्टूडेंट, जब हम ग्रेजुएशन में थे, एबनॉर्मल साइकोलॉजी पढ़ाई जा रही थी, क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजी पढ़ाई जा रही थी, हम डीएसएम क्लासिफिकेशन को देख रहे थे, हम सिम्टम्स को पढ़ते थे, तो हर दोस्त, हर रिश्तेदार में कोई ना कोई डिसऑर्डर दिख जाता. अपनी तरफ देखते तो परेशान हो जाते थे कि हमको भी तो कुछ नहीं है. So it's not a, so please do, it's good to be aware, but when it comes to your own wellness, your own well-being, connect to the right professional, because it is okay to be not okay, right? Seek help when you need help, because your mind matters. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. It reminds me of another couplet by Mirza Ghalib. बस के दुश्वार है हर काम का आसान होना, आदमी को भी मयस्सर नहीं इंसान होना. So it's आदमी को भी मयस्सर नहीं इंसान होना. Actually it's like we are human and we are not perfect. We have our imperfections, and it is okay to be imperfect. It is okay to it's important to accept ourselves as we are, and it is important to seek help whenever we need to. And thank you so much, sir, for such profound insights. And now I would like to move on to our students. First of all, I would like to welcome Sohan Das from Haberdasher Boys School, England. Hope I pronounced it right. Sohan.
Hello. First of all, I'll be talking on the need to normalize mental health.
Yeah.
I'd first of all like to thank you for having me here, and thank the guest speakers for their very insightful words of wisdom. I'm going to start off with some facts just to sort of show how prominent mental health is, especially in England. So, according to mental health charity Mind, 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem of some kind each year in England, and 1 in 6 will report a common mental health problem in any given week in England, and that involves anxiety or depression. And when it comes to children, 10% of children have a clinically diagnosable mental health problem. There are nearly 300 mental disorders listed, generally in 11 different categories, which are very varied. I'll just go over them now. Anxiety disorders, behavioral and emotional disorders in children, bipolar affective disorders, depression, dissociation and dissociative disorders, eating disorders, obsessive compulsive disorders, paranoia, post-traumatic stress disorders, psychosis, and schizophrenia. There's lots and lots in those subcategories. There are around 15 major mental health charities listed by the NHS. However, there are multiple community-led charities. And in England, mental health is something that is being publicized a lot more nowadays than it was, say, 10 years ago. In my school, there is a system in place, and that's encouraged to be in every school. For instance, we have 2 school counselors who are fully trained, 2 nurses, and 5 other people in the school who teach that we can go to. However, many schools don't have that system or have such an emphasis on mental health that my school does, which is why there is a need to normalize mental health and to tell people that it is okay to be not okay, as former guest speaker said. So mental health, as I said, is spoken about. However, there is still a massive stigma about it. 9 in 10 people who suffer suggest that they've had a negative impact on their lives from stigma and discrimination because of their mental illness. I am guilty of using terms incorrectly, such as depressed and anxiety, as I'm sure many people are. I've said that I'm depressed when I'm simply just bored without something else to do. However, for people who actually suffer from clinical depression, it can feel as if we are belittling them, making them feel that what they're going through is not bad and that they shouldn't seek help. It convinces people to stay silent when really they shouldn't be. We commonly make jokes about being depressed, mad, or anxious in England, and social media is another thing that affects it. It blurs the line between normal and emotion and mental illness. You'll have people saying that they feel sad or they feel upset for a small period of time, and some people will think, oh, there's so many people doing this, what I'm going through is probably the same as them, when really it's not. The media often inaccurately portrays mental illness. It's over dramatized or sometimes even romanticized in movies, and it's something that deeply affects those who suffer from it. So mental illness is publicized, but it has not been normalized. The stories we get on the news about how people have suffered, particularly famous people have suffered, are disconnected and do not apply to the common people of England. There needs to be a need for more common stories, perhaps just somebody you see working in a shop they might be suffering from mental health illnesses, but we do not hear about their side of the story. We'll only hear about perhaps singers who suffer from mental illnesses and have far more resources to get to a psychologist than perhaps your everyday person. It's almost as if mental health has become something that's mass advertised. It's something that people try to take advantage of. Whereas my personal belief is that it should be more personal. Advertising should be more personal. Everybody should have that some person, at least one person who they can go to. However, many people do not have that. In schools, as we're all students, I believe that there's a need for peer-to-peer support. Many people don't really feel comfortable going to a teacher about their illness. Sometimes I know in my school, there's this belief that if you go to a teacher and appear weak, for instance, for having a mental health illness, there might be some sort of effect on your grades or such, when in actuality, that is just nonsense. However, peer-to-peer support, because we feel far more comfortable talking to our friends about our problems than we do talking to about our teachers. We feel that they're more relatable to it. So I feel that there's a need to educate the children from a young age about mental health so that we grow up knowing that people who have mental health are not abnormal, because there is no such thing as a normal human. And that is another term that is incorrectly misused. There's no such thing as a normal human. What I might classify as normal is very different to what somebody with a mental health illness might classify as normal. They might think that having a mental illness is normal, or they might think that they're abnormal for having a mental illness, when in actual fact, that's just utter nonsense, really. Because, as I said, 1 in 4 people have it. That's 25% of the population. That is a significant number. Which is why I feel that although mental health is actively publicized in Britain, there are adverts on TV, there are adverts at train stations, it's not something that has been properly normalized. It's not gone down to a community level as such. And I feel that charities who work towards it, especially charities like Mind or like Samaritans, who are probably the biggest mental health charities in the UK, need to work towards getting stories of people who perhaps students, as in like myself, who have suffered from mental health illness, because those people are often afraid to talk about their experiences. And I believe that hearing from them will enable us to understand their perspective and enable us to feel normal, which is a term that I really don't like using, feel normal around people with mental health and make sure that they feel normal around us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sohan. You raised a lot of important points, and the way it is, the awareness is not just about advertising. We need the right perspectives. The perspective
Yes.
has to be in place, and help help for basic, like normal issues, normal things that we go through. We need, everybody needs a friend, someone whom we can go to, someone who listens to us, someone, it can be anyone. And the use of the word abnormal, it's really a very stupid thing to call someone abnormal or normal, and making those kind of distinctions relating to the mental well-being of a person, the mind of a person.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, it's a very complex thing, and oversimplifying it doesn't solve problems.
No, it doesn't.
So thank you for such a wonderful speech. Now I would like to welcome Ishaan Banerjee from Birla High School, Calcutta.
Right. Am I audible?
Yeah, Ishaan. Hi, how are you?
Good, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. So, Ishaan, as we talked about this the last day, about the need to educate men about menstruation, about both the aspects, the things that this particular, like, menstruation brings, as the physical aspects of it, the way it affects the mind and the things around us, the perspectives around it. it's very important to educate men about this, particularly.
Absolutely.
Uh, so, over to you, Ishaan.
Right. Very good evening to one and all present here. I'll be talking about the need to educate men about menstruation. Well, to start off, Mr. Mohan very rightly drew the similarity between physical illness and mental illness, because I feel that just as maybe a physical illness demands timely intervention and immediate intervention, mental health issues too need timely and immediate interventions. And the stigma surrounding menstruation is a major source of mental health problems. And that is why we need immediate intervention in this domain. When I first read the topic or the name of the event and correlated my topic, I indeed understood that this is a very pertinent issue in today's times. And I urgently feel, and I do feel that every mind does matter. In conjunction to my topic today, a woman's mind and mental state does matter, and the education of a man in pursuit of shaping an open mind does matter. Stigma surrounding menstruation brings about an abnormal self-consciousness and hypervigilance in the women associated with the concerns of revelation of the menstrual status, which should not be a case because it is detrimental to society. We can today come to a conclusion that urban educated men living in metropolitans, understand or are educated about menstruation mostly through the school syllabus or with just few open-minded conversations here and there. But today's discussion would start beyond the small minority of men who are actually aware and empathetic towards menstruation. Now, if we look at the majority of men in this case, they are very less informed. Majority of men's understanding of a female sexual anatomy is even less informed than that of a small population of girls who are not aware in maybe the rural parts of India. The discomfort around period talking is not helped by the fact that the topic is often kept hush hush. I have many female friends who are often restricted from doing many things when they are on their periods, and keeping periods a very discreet topic or keeping it from their male members of the family. Women are often, in fact, taught to be discreet about their period symptoms and avoid public and often private conversations about it. Men are today, in today's world, often excused from the conversations entirely, which is a huge problem. And I will tell you why it is a problem. Today, educating men is the need of the hour. That is something everyone knows. Instructing boys and girls separately today can perpetuate the aura of stigma even more, and it can make periods of an even more mysterious topic. So, just as men need to be educated, the education needs to happen in tandem with that of women. Because the moment women or men are not educated about menstruation together, they will never learn to look at it from each other's perspective. Boys and girls today often miss out on the opportunity to practice communicating with each other about sensitive topics such as menstruation, knowing the fact that they will go ahead in time they will go ahead to have intimate relationships in the future with women, or vice versa. Students are less likely in this process to develop empathy for the changes and challenges experienced by the other sex. Now, in this context, it is very important for men to be educated in tandem with the women. Now, for the purpose of today's event, I carried out a small survey, the sample of which was 50 people, all women. I can forward it to anyone who's interested in reading the responses. My first question was whether today's girls are educated by their very own mothers from not talking about menstruation to the male members of the family. 92.9% of the people agreed to this statement, which proves what? Which proves that today there is an urgency to educate men about normalizing menstruation, so that somewhere down the line this barrier breaks or the stigma breaks, and this does not pass on from generation to generation, which proves the fact that men need to be educated. There was 100% consensus on the fact that men need to be educated about menstruation, and 97.6% felt that stigmatization should not be fostered by maybe covering sanitary pads in black polythenes or in newspapers to keep people from knowing what a woman is carrying around. Education of men in this context is of utmost importance because, ladies and gentlemen, these are the very little things which need to be normalized in today's society. And lastly, today, No matter what alternatives are provided for normalization of menstruation and the talk around periods and education of men and women, education of men is of utmost importance because we need to understand that this very stigma that surrounds menstruation leads or pushes women to be more isolated and anxious, which is detrimental to human race in the contemporary context. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ishaan. And actually, this is a very pertinent question that we all need to ask ourselves, and especially the men, because like in our houses, we've seen this happening. The way women are isolated when they are going through the periods, and uh, isolating them and connecting it to religious aspects is also a very difficult situation for the women. Becomes a really difficult situation for the women, and the especially when you don't know about these things, it becomes even more discomforting, and it's really very. I think you cannot do anything about it if you don't know anything about it. So the first point is to be educated about these things. Uh, Thank you so much for talking about this particular subject, this very important subject. Now let us move on to our next participant uh, from DPS Ruby Park, Kolkata, Devopriya Sarkar. Hi, Devopriya. How are you? Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm good. So, Devopriya, another
So, yes,
keyword that has been uh, affecting our minds in a lot of ways. Corona. It's a word that has been like a very stressful word for us. And my question for you is:
yes,
is coronaphobia a greater threat than corona itself? The fear of corona. We actually have a term that has been coined for it: coronaphobia. Mental health and its relation
yes,
to mental health, as Sir said a few minutes back, that mental health and physical health are related to each other. So, how does this coronaphobia affect our mental health, and is it affecting our physical health more? Like, it's coronaphobia affecting us more than the real disease, than the actual disease. Over to you, Devapriya.
yes. So, good evening to one and all present here. I am Debashish Ray from DPS Ruby Park, and I am here to speak about the mental health issues that have arisen in this COVID-19 pandemic situation and coronaphobia. So, it has been rightly said by the Director General of WHO that good mental health is essentially fundamental to good health and well being. But the kind of pandemic situation all of us are in, and the kind of alienation from the social world and the social withdrawal all of us are facing, have interrupted the global mental health services when they need it the most. So, in this situation, one of the most important threats or the problems that we are facing is the fear of contracting COVID-19 virus. And the social scientists have used the expression or the term coronaphobia to refer to it. So, what is a phobia? A phobia is basically an anxiety disorder which deals with persistent and irritable fears regarding a specific situation or a person or a specific object. And coronaphobia is the fear of contracting COVID-19 virus. So, when we talk about the COVID-19 virus and coronaphobia, there are certain or three main components of coronaphobia: physiological, cognitive, and behavior. So when we talk about the physiological problem, when we are very much aroused by the antecedent event, then our fight or flight response get activated. And like when we have a fear of COVID-19 virus, we hear about someone getting affected by COVID-19 virus, or we read a lot of news. Whenever we, the first thing when we open a wake up every morning, we open a newspaper and we see that the statistical analysis that yes, the COVID-19 virus is uh, affecting so many people around the world, and we get really tensed. And as a result, we face various physiological tremors like palpitation, high heart rate, and there are certain fear provoking cognitions we face, like I will die if I contract COVID-19 virus, or I will lose my job if I contract COVID-19 virus, my academic activities will be really affected. And then the last comes the behavioral aspect of coronaphobia. And when we talk about the behavioral aspect, like all of us have in this situation, all of us has learned to adapt to the situation by now. Most of us, we are trying to practice certain avoidance behaviors, like avoiding public transport or avoiding being in an enclosed space with a lot of people around us. And now living with the precautions has become the new normal. So, after talking about the components of coronaphobia, I would like to get into the risk factors, which I have personally, we all of us have experienced. And the first is unforeseen reality and disturb human life. So, I personally feel that a human life is more assumed than planned, and all of us have a kind of blueprint for the entire day and an array of solutions to all the problems that we are facing in our day-to-day life. And we have a tendency to look for to lead a life of certainty and disdain uncertainty in a way. So but this kind of situation is probably the first lockdown that our generation is facing, and none of us know how to deal with it. So this is one of the major reasons why this corona phobia is affecting us so much. And the second is the kind of exaggeration. Like I really feel that yes, it's okay to be and it's important to to be aware of the causes and consequences of COVID-19 virus, but not to an extent that it disrupts our own emotional well-being. Like nowadays, whenever we go to any hospitals or clinics, then we are told to get the COVID-19 test done. Like I already said in my earlier meeting, that recently I had some food poisoning issues and I went to the clinic, and they told me to get the COVID-19 test done. So, I mean, this is exaggerated to such an extent that it has lead to an illness anxiety disorder, and we are so much preoccupied with the COVID-19 disease that is always on our mind. And we like whenever we hear someone getting affected by the virus, or we see the news reports, we get so much frightened and we get so much scared, and we feel that yes, we have got that got COVID-19 even if we are not even feeling the symptoms. And the last, I would like to glorify on social withdrawal and alienation, which is of course one of the consequences of COVID-19 and lockdown itself. But I feel that we face various challenges in our life, we face various problems in our life, but when we interact with our closed ones, we try to take their advices, we implement their opinions, or even talking with our closed ones or loved ones makes is a major relief to all of us. But nowadays this is not possible due to lockdown, and we are facing a kind of isolation, and social interaction is only possible through online platforms. So now the question is that this COVID is COVID, coronaphobia greater than COVID-19 virus itself? Now I think that a kind of fear of getting affected by a disease is very much integral part of any of the pandemics situations, like when HIV came or any other pandemics came, then it is very much integral part of getting affected by the disease. But due to this kind of social withdrawal, we and exaggeration, we are facing this coronaphobia more and more. And this coronaphobia, which is one of the consequences of a pandemic, has itself evolved into such a major health issue. So now that we are in this situation, it's high time that we realize, and we have realized to an extent, that yes, it is important not to be physically fit but also emotionally fit. And all of us are together in this situation, so we must and should help each other. We must look at it in a more mature way, more courageous way, because yes, we will be able to deal with it only in a mature way, and not try to panic or create a panic. Because yes, many other challenges, many other pandemics have come and gone, and we will be able to deal with it. And we so yeah, try to indulge ourselves in constructive activities or kind of activities that we like. So yeah, help others and let others help you, and talk it out to people. um, Thank you. I would best wishes for the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Devapriya.
Thank you, sir.
As it is said, we often fear what we don't understand. And this is something that a lot of us don't understand, the virus, because uh, but this situation gave rise to a lot of specialists, people who claim to know a lot about this disease. While the doctors are struggling with the vaccine, they are trying to figure out a vaccine and a solution. We have a lot of people around us who keep telling us what this virus is, like they know everything about it. So that takes us to the next question. I would like to welcome Sunidhi Sudhir from DPS E-City Bangalore. Uh, Sunidhi?
Yes, thank you so much, sir.
Hi, how are you?
Good evening. I'm fine. How are you?
Okay, Sunidhi. So there are a lot of pseudo specialists about mental health as well. Like I've seen a lot of Insta lives about of people talking about mental health, and like they're experts, like they know everything about mental health. And a lot of times, like when we search for such help, we do need specialists. We do need professionals when we're actually going through something like this.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about the threat of pseudo specialists, and what is the need of certification and qualifications in this regard?
Okay, so first off, I'd like to start by saying good evening, everyone. And since we've all gathered here, we've heard the profound words of the guest speakers, and then all of us decided to participate in this webinar, and the DPS Howrah family has decided to conduct this Mind Matters, this whole webinar and stuff. So I think it's safe to assume that we all have come to a consensus that mental health awareness and being more accepting and open to the idea of normalizing mental health issues is something which we all think is extremely important, especially in our motherland, India. But the one topic which isn't much talked about is pseudo specialists, the need for qualifications and certification. Now you might be wondering, Sunidhi, well, that's common sense ki baat hai. Why are you introducing something like this? Well, they do say that common sense is not so common, so let's just get into it. So there are two types of pseudo specialists out there. Okay. So the first pseudo specialist is your quote unquote fake doctor. Okay, like how Sir had mentioned, claims to know a lot about something, keeps blabbering on, but clearly doesn't know what he's talking about, and doesn't have the necessary degrees or qualifications. The second type, and I think Mohan Sir had mentioned this, and that is self-diagnosis, you yourself. Sometimes, if I were to explain what self-diagnosis is, if I were to give an example, you notice a small bump on your hand, you rush to your trusted Google Babaji, ask away all of your questions, queries, your symptoms, read everything, read all the half information, misinformation put in there, and you come to the conclusion that, oh my God, I have cancer, which, trust me, 99.9% of the time is not true. Sometimes you think that you are the best when it comes to diagnosing yourself, self-diagnosis, by doing your own research when clearly you are not specialized yourself. The other topic about fake doctors is a bit more grim and serious than self-diagnosis. You see, even though as Indians we've come across, and even across the world, we've actually taken a lot of strides when it comes to the whole mental health awareness thing. And the one thing which we need to accept and realize is the fact that these are just baby steps. Even though we've come far, it's just not enough. As the first speaker had rightfully mentioned, that we've still not normalized the mental health issue or the stigmatization of mental health illnesses. And because of this, many people face shame and guilt when it comes to any type of symptom or any illness they think they are struggling through. They feel ashamed when they have to ask for help. Instead of being more bold, they shun themselves from society. And as a result of this, instead of actually going to a professional, doing their research and being more vocal about themselves and their problems, they go to any other advisor, maybe their chachaji who seems to talk a lot about certain topics, or any other neighborhood person or any shady clinic, as long as they can keep their symptoms and illness hush-hush and move on with their daily lives. As a result, they go to these fake doctors who say that they have many certifications and qualifications, even though they don't have any proof to show people. Now, since we've gone into the nitty-gritty of pseudo specialists, that is, it could be any of us. It could be those who have gone through their so-called degrees, and it could be either me or you. We've all been guilty of doing this, so it's all right. Let's get into what the ultimate villain is at the end of the day. If I were to say what the ultimate baddie is, it is a misdiagnosis. Now, there are three main reasons why a misdiagnosis is bad. So regardless of whether you self-diagnose or go to a pseudo specialist, you have a very, very high chance of ending up with a misdiagnosis. The first reason why a misdiagnosis is bad is because of a very obvious, sensible reason. You end up being prescribed medications which you don't need. Guys, remember, any medicine that you consume, it could be homeopathy or allopathy or Ayurveda even, all of that is just an extra additive to your body. It's another chemical that you're consuming. You need to be mindful and aware that there are many drugs out there which you totally do not need. So when you are misdiagnosed with an illness and are given medication or a prescription matching that misdiagnosis, not only do you add a chemical to your body that you don't need, you're completely ignoring the illness that is within you. So it could actually harm your body much more. As a human being, you must have noticed people say, many of these fitness gurus, they do say that, the food you take is your medicine. There's a level of truth to it. But sometimes we need some extra help, and that is what medicine is. That's what prescriptions are. So getting prescribed some medicine which you don't need is extremely harmful. So please keep this in mind. The second topic is something which I did mention. The second reason as to why a misdiagnosis is extremely harmful is that your actual illness remains latent, hidden, and thrives in your body while you struggle. So many a times, and this is something which I found with my research on the net, is that in the case of people with bipolar disorders, and what happens for those with bipolar disorders who go to these pseudo specialists are that many a times they get diagnosed with either mania or they get diagnosed with depression, either one of the two. You see, a real doctor would spend the time to observe you, ask you the right questions, spend time with you to find out the nitty-gritty of what exactly you're going on, instead of coming into such conclusions. As a result of this, they get prescribed meds for either mania or for depression. And due to this, they end up with having stabilized mania episodes, but really bad depressive episodes. Or in the flip side, you have stabilized depressive episodes with really high manias. At the end of the day, if I were to say it in layman's terms, they end up much worse. They end up much worse than they had started off. And this is simply because of a misdiagnosis. Remember, noticing and accepting and being aware of the illness within you is extremely, extremely important to maintain your health. It seems like common sense, but apparently we have to remind ourselves this once in a while. So here I am helping you out. Now, the third topic is a little bit freaky, all right? And that is that you can manifest an illness that you probably never had. You see, psychology is a fascinating topic to study. And in it, we learn about perception. Perception is basically the way in which you interpret and give meaning to everything that you come across. This could be a stimulus that is from your environment, or it could be from within you. Perception is the lens with which you view reality. To explain perception a bit more, I have these two circles with me, all right? So if I were to ask you, the audience, are these two circles the same? Of course, you'll be like, Sunidhi, they both are clearly not the same circle. One is red while the other is green. All right. Now, if I were to ask the same question, are these two circles the same, to a person who is red-green colorblind, they will be like, Sunidhi, the two circles look around the same size, and I can't really see the difference between the colors. They are the same circle. The reason why I introduced this question is because of, well, perception. Perception is the lens with which you view your reality. Perception equals to reality. Just like how Ray sir had mentioned about the relativity of mental health, your perception is just as relative. How you perceive something is your reality. To me and you, I hope you have good vision and you can see all colors. To both of us, our reality is that these two circles are different. But to a colorblind man, these two circles are the same. Can we say that that colorblind man is wrong? Of course not. That's his reality. It doesn't matter what truly exists. At the end of the day, only your reality exists. It doesn't matter what truly exists. And being misdiagnosed with an illness construes your perception in such a manner that you get stressed, you get sometimes even depressed about an illness you don't have. And that's why it is extremely crucial that we stop this business of misdiagnosis as much as possible. You may manifest anxiety disorders, you may manifest phobias pertaining to something which you don't deserve to have known ever before. So now that we've discussed the three reasons as to why a misdiagnosis is extremely harmful, let's move on to the solutions, right? Because we all need solutions. The first thing is, please don't self-diagnose. Being knowledgeable is great, but don't come to conclusions. See, doing your research is very, very good. Being informed about everything that's out there is great. In fact, access to information is your birthright. You have the right to do it. Nobody can stop you. However, concluding something, not so much. At the end of the day, by self-diagnosing, you're just going to end up stressed and anxious at the end of the day. Instead, if you notice that you are prone to being extremely worried about your symptoms or anything of that sort, make sure to inform yourself first. If that's not working, bring your family members and peers into the equation. And most importantly, if you notice somebody around you doing the same, if they're having a really hard time, coping with their symptoms, make sure to step in, show them the right path, and bring them to a professional. Another thing with the pseudo specialists, the fake doctors, do your research there instead. Make sure you go to a reputed clinic. Make sure you go to the proper therapist or the psychologist, psychiatrist, go to them, have a consultation with them, and get some reviews. Get some reviews from ex-patients or from your family members. What do they have to think about this whole situation? Make them aware as well of what you're going through. I mean, we put in a lot of effort for our physical health, so why not for our mental health as well? And most importantly, remember that your mental health journey is not a solo journey. It is a journey involving both you, your loved ones, your doctors, everyone, as you all navigate your way through the empty desert that you feel you are in order to find the oasis where you can find your peace and happiness. In order to conclude, I would like to state a quote by Katrina Mayer. And she said that self-love is not vanity, it's sanity. Remember, this is your health we are talking about. Putting a little bit of extra effort, time, and concern about it is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Remember, you truly do matter and you deserve all the best that's out there, all the happiness and all the love. And most importantly, proper health care. Thank you so much. Stay wise, stay safe, and I hope you have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you so much, Sunidhi. So a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. You might just end up getting a disease from a fake doctor instead of getting a solution to your problems in public interest. So let's move on to our next participant, Tisha from BDMI Kolkata. Tisha?
I hope I'm audible and visible.
Yes, you are. Hi, how are you? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm fine. Hope you're fine too.
Yeah, I'm good. So,
Okay.
Tisha, we were discussing about the first line of Prem Chand's Buri Kaki. बुढ़ापा बहुधा बचपन का पुनरागमन होता है. Old age is the second childhood. So let's talk about the effect of technology, and especially during the pandemic, a lot of elderly people were alone. There was no one to take care of them, and with all the messages about people above 65 are more vulnerable to this disease. They were going through a lot. So let us talk about them. So what do you think about loneliness amongst the elderly and the effects of technology and the pandemic on them?
Okay, so I'll start off with a quote by Mother Teresa, a famous personality. She said that being unwanted, being unloved, uncared for, being forgotten by everybody is a much greater pain, a much greater poverty than even any person who has nothing to eat. And this line I personally feel is indeed true, whose importance only those will understand to whom it is addressed. Yes, it is the elderly population, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, who were once so busy at one point of time in their own jobs, looking after their kids, and now the abundance of time for them is so much that even a few minutes will seem like some hours. Loneliness, I feel, is the greatest disease known to mankind, and the largest number of victims of which are the senior citizens. As people get older, uh, their children move out, they lose contact with their friends. Overall, their social contact gets minimized. If I speak about the results, I'll place some facts in front of. Some studies say that loneliness can be as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It can even increase the risk of dementia by 64% and the likelihood of mortality by 26%. Even the severity of symptoms during common cold gets increased by 5% than those who can socialize well. The common causes of this loneliness and isolation is impaired mobility, living alone, rural living, or being a part of a marginalized group, and obviously negligence by even the near and dear ones. Research on such loneliness issues say that it can lead to several poor health conditions like heart diseases, high blood pressure, and some psychological conditions too, like anxiety, clinical depression, cognitive decline, as well as the Alzheimer's disease. To be more severe, it can even lead to death. Now, if we look more broadly to this issue, though loneliness is the most affected population of this loneliness issue is the elderly group, but it can affect other people too. Like today, we no longer, I feel, live in joint families, most of us. And even in most of the households, both the parents are working. We have working parents. So I feel that a child in that particular household does not get the company of those people to whom he or she is probably the closest to. In such situations, it affects adversely. Now, the next gen people like us and all my fellow mates who are present here today have access to modern technology, and we quite know about it, the benefits we get, and we can connect to people throughout the world. But this aged group of people do not have much access to these sources. They do not know much about it, which can help them enjoy or rejuvenate or at least virtually connect with people, especially in this pandemic time when I think we have required the IT and technology the most, it has affected this aged group very badly. If I come to my own country, India, uh, one in every two elderly citizens suffer from loneliness, and one in every five literally required some sort of psychological counseling too. Um, Now, my speaking so much negative about this issue does not mean that there is absolutely no solution to it. There are, obviously. The best solutions I feel is increasing our social support towards them. If we put a step forward to, indulge with people, not only our own grandparents, but also to the elderly age group who are around us, around in our neighborhood, spending some time with them, sparing some moments for them so that they feel happy and they feel that there's someone for them who care about them, will have a great effect. We should stand by them, ask them to be brave enough, stay strong, and spend time in certain activities, their hobbies, their wishes, which they could not fulfill because they were busy in their lives throughout. Uh, Enjoying a few moments of the mortal life they have will make them happy. It will help to pull out them from this darkness of depression and loneliness, and they can face a new ray of hope, happiness, pleasure, and a world full of positivity, because every mind matters. So that's all I had to say. Thank you for your patient hearing, and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you so much, Tisha. My voice is going. Is it fine?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So just one thing, we have a time limit, so I would request you all to please adhere to the time limit. I will move on to our next school, DPS Howrah. Aditya Ghosh. Aditya. Hi. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
So Aditya, I'm fine. We have this overused term, social distancing. We've been using it a lot lately, but we are social animals. Man is a social animal, as it is said. So uh, there's another word called physical distancing that we are not using much. We are mostly using social distancing. What do you think is the difference between both these words? And since I said that, since we say that man is a social animal, what are the effects of this pandemic on interpersonal relationships, according to you?
Right, sir. Thank you. So I would start with some stats and some facts. So, few months of lockdown, 120% spike in divorce cases, 67% rise in suicide reports, and finally, 200% spike in the people reporting to suffer from depression. The numbers just doubled, all in just few months of lockdown. What could have possibly gone wrong? Good evening, respected judges. Possibly digging into the probable reasons of these effects. Many things come and go every year, making it special for someone in particular. But 2020, with its special number, would remain special to each and every soul on the earth. A year that wouldn't be so easy to forget. Starting from the pandemic, followed by the lockdown, and finally to the vaccines. Today, the lockdown has come to an end, but before it left, it managed to threaten livelihoods and lead to stigmatization of those infected. On the other hand, the world would have probably had its longest period of holidays. But holidays are meant to be enjoyed and relaxed. Is it the time when families separate or do they live together? The estranged economy, jobless folks, people stuck in far off cities away from their families, work from home online classes. Well, the lockdown has seen it all. Coming to interpersonal relationships, These are relationships which are closer than any other normal relationships between two like-minded people. It's about the strong bond that gets created in case of an interpersonal relationship. Now, such a relationship can exist in a variety of places and situations: at home, between a couple, brother, sister, between parents and their children, at the workplace, between two colleagues, at school, between two best friends, BFFs, you see. But the question is, how did this lockdown have an effect on relations so strong? Taking the very first situation, when two people having an intimate relationship spend a lot of time together, it is expected that they develop a bond even stronger than before. And this happened. In the very beginning of the lockdown and home quarantine practices, a survey was conducted in China which asked its participants to rate the quality of relationship between their friends, partners, local residents, and other people from extraordinarily unhappy to perfect. And it was recorded that almost half of them said that the relationship with their partners improved. But at the very same time, in the same country, certain marriage registration offices saw an unprecedented rise in the number of divorce requests. And the probable reason? According to Susan Coy, a sociologist from Hong Kong, the high pressure environment of confinement, combined with the financial stress brought about by a COVID-19 burdened economy, has led to rise in marital conflict. Males not wanting to participate in domestic chores led to the conflict. And why is it high pressure environment? Ladies and gentlemen, for adults locked up in the house, living the groundhog days, half of them strive to balance between work from home and work at home, while the other half trying to fill their stomachs after the lockdown took their jobs away. It turns out that the lockdown made work or no work both equally reasons of stress, hence anxiety, hence depression, and hence all these stats. Coming to friends, the lockdown was a bittersweet condition. It was sort of tamarind in a sweet caramel sauce. We were close to our family, the closest ever been, 24 hours straight with them. But the very same time, hangouts, friendly gatherings, communal meetings, parties were either distant memories, and even if they existed, there were very few locations to happen in. For example, Google Meet, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, and probably that's all. Facebook, WhatsApp allowed us to talk to each other, but physical, verbal communication lost its existence. And most importantly, typed messages could never convey our emotions, could they? An interpersonal relationship is where people find themselves unjudged and free to express themselves to the other person. Our friends are like our pillars, they are our support systems. But given social distancing measures, most people have also been isolated from these usual support systems and cut off from our regular coping mechanisms. The same survey conducted in China showed a decline in the quality of relationship between friends and neighbors. Personally, this lockdown made me realize how important joint families are for us and made me crave for one. In nuclear families, parents are the only friends that children have had during the lockdown. But often adults are adults and children are children. Neither can become the other. Finally, I would end on a positive note that even though the lockdown had actually had a mental pandemic for some within the already present COVID 19 pandemic, it acted as a boon for millions. This was the time when few actually got the chance to know themselves even better and their dear ones even more well. We could spend some more time with our family than ever before. Even in this adverse situation, we created new bonds, new relationships, and new families. We learned new things, we discovered new stuff. We learned to thrive and once again prove that humanity is a race not so easy to defeat. I will end with a beautiful thought that I first learned from a WhatsApp status, and it turned out to be quite apt for this lockdown and the pandemic. It said, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Stay happy, stay safe. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so much, Aditya. That reminds me of a nazm by Gulzar Saab. हाथ छूटे भी तो रिश्ते नहीं छोड़ा करते, वक्त की शाख से लम्हे नहीं तोड़ा करते. हाथ छूट जाए पर रिश्ते नहीं छोड़ने चाहिए. सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग की जगह फिजिकल डिस्टेंसिंग पर ध्यान रखें. So let us move on to our next participant, Ishaan Sarkar from Kimbleton. Kimbleton School, UK. Hi, Ishaan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. So, Ishaan,
Mm-hmm.
since we were talking about interpersonal relationships, uh, this pandemic has has affected the people who've been the most affected by this pandemic probably are, as we call them, warriors, the people who have been on the forefront, the doctors. Uh, so the mental well-being of people working in hospitals, the doctors are also humans. Uh, they have a huge responsibility, but as a society, we have a responsibility towards our doctors. So, what would you like to say about the mental well-being of all the people working in hospitals?
Mm-hmm. First of all, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's okay. And is my connection okay? Is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So I'm going to be explaining the moderately unacknowledged topic of the mental well-being of healthcare workers. And this is not a new topic, of course. I've seen articles regarding the mental well-being of hospital workers more than once before. And with healthcare becoming more of an intrinsic part of our daily lives, it is imperative that we can see how much of a toll working in hospitals really takes. So first of all, I have some figures on guiding you into a brief perspective on how hospitals are faring in today's world. And I've done some research on the numbers regarding hospitals in the UK. So in the last month, between 20 and 30,000 total beds were occupied daily. Daily deaths remain exceedingly high. So recent figures in the last week show daily deaths reaching 1,800. And the NHS is losing 350,000 individual working days just due to stress, anxiety, and depression in just a month. But overall, I feel that these numbers can undoubtedly be used to provide a more holistic overview, as these difficult times can be said to affect all hospital workers internationally as well. And it may, of course, differ for different countries, but I can promise you that there are mental health issues in hospitals wherever you are, and this does need to be acknowledged by us. Although I feel that the current situation regarding the mental health of healthcare workers just cannot be expressed as simply as numbers. So I wanted to know where the root of the problems truly lie and how much is actually being done to support individuals. So aside from statistics, I did some further research. This research includes an anonymous survey I conducted by a small group of doctors working in hospitals, spanning from senior consultants to junior doctors from the UK to India. Unfortunately, it wasn't a very large group of doctors because obviously they don't have much time on their hands. But ultimately, they enlightened me with eye-opening information on the reality of working in hospitals. And I was overall unsurprised with the feedback I received on the whole. Their comments alongside my research on scholarly articles provide sufficient evidence that there are disagreeable circumstances at the matter. Furthermore, I had several repeated terms and phrases such as constant demand exceeds capacity, likening to war, shortness of PPEs, and inadequacies. And it's the supply-demand problem that strikes me the most, as it's a relatively straightforward prospect to explain. I think you'll agree. However, that does not make it easy to understand at the individual level. One doctor I spoke to said, PP support staff are stretched, explaining time is being rationed very scarcely. And there is a significant amount of information to pick apart from just this, and links back to our supply-demand problem. So far, I've painted a very biased, single-colored picture. It illustrates a very bleak image, but there is more to it than this. One statement I found very thought-provoking was this: pressure is objective. I make sure situations don't get the upper hand on me. Another said, if you enjoy your work, you will encounter fewer health problems, mismatched expectations, and achievements is where mental health problems come from. It's also important to acknowledge the effect of location, because you may expect mental well-being issues in some environments whilst having fewer occurrences in others. And when prompted with the question, of how much support there is for hospital staff, I realized that there is much individuality to the question of support in healthcare. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I yielded quite a sporadic group of numbers, suggesting a more complicated premise. Moreover, what I found interesting is that junior doctors often receive more support than senior doctors. And whilst this is rightly based on the lack of years' experience of younger doctors, I realized that the senior doctors need enough support themselves because they get put under massive amounts of pressure as they need to supervise other additional staff as well. Now, in spite of available online resources for those who need it, a problem also lies with the deterrence of seeking help. It raises the question of whether there should be further measures to ensure staff get help to alleviate stress. Therefore, we should look at more ways to aid hospital staff in some form. One doctor told me that voluntary organizations exist. However, time will tell if this is adequate enough. So to conclude, I want you to take one key idea from all of this. Mental well-being in healthcare professionals is not just a recent occurrence. Whilst mental health has deteriorated significantly over the pandemic, there are underlying mental well-being issues that those working in hospitals have faced since almost the beginning of healthcare. I feel that the problem lies largely with the fear of the adverse impact on one's job profile and bottling up mental health concerns. And all in all, I was shown that working in hospitals is extremely rewarding, and there are some moments within healthcare that you can get from no other profession. But finally, I hope that you have gained rich knowledge of how working in hospitals affects mental health, and I urge you to have a more empathetic perspective for those working in hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ishaan. So let's move to our next topic. Durba from Sri Shikshayatan School, Kolkata. Durba Ghosh. Hi, Durba.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Durba, let's talk about the need of taking care of mental health from an early age, because it's nowadays when the children are going through a lot, they're not being able to have a social life at a very crucial stage, and they need to be more aware about themselves and their social interactions as well. They're living in a different world. They're growing up in a different world. So, what is the need of taking care of mental health from an early age? And there's an increase in depression and in young adults nowadays. So, what do you think is what will be your perspective on this particular issue? Over to you, Durga.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening to one and all present here. Firstly, I'd like to thank the organizers for providing me with this wonderful opportunity to speak on such a pertinent topic. Now, when we talk about mental health, there's definitely this strong stigma surrounding it, as it has been wonderfully explained by some of the previous speakers. In 2021, people still struggle to come to terms with the fact that the brain can fall sick too, just like the other organs of one's body. But when we talk about mental health of children specifically, most adults go into complete denial and they cannot accept the fact that even children can be suffering from mental health problems. They often wonder how a child who does not have any serious exposure to the stressful factors of the outside world can suffer from mental health issues. This brings me to another topic, how the media, to be more specific, movies, have put a very wrong idea in our minds that you cannot suffer from mental health problems if you haven't undergone some kind of serious trauma in your childhood. Often children feel like their problems are being invalidated because they think that since they haven't undergone any particularly tragic event, their negative emotions are formed as a result of them being overly dramatic. And the fact that their parents often tell them that they are being overly dramatic does not help them at all. Now, when I'm talking about mental health problems commonly faced by children, I'll be focusing more on the diseases like ADHD, anxiety, and dyslexia, because even though these are the most common forms of mental health issues faced by children, these are also the most commonly misinterpreted and misunderstood ones. These diseases can be genetic or can develop as a result of environmental factors. For example, being a single child and not having many friends while growing up might lead to the development of social anxiety in a child. Or it might be due to the fact that some children are simply more anxious and less able to cope with stress than others. So imagine this scenario. A child suffering from ADHD forgets whatever course their parents have asked them to do and focus on playing games instead. It's not just for course, they have difficulty in concentrating on any particular task at hand. People often mistakenly see kids with ADHD as lazy, but in fact, doing simple household chores are multi step processes that require many executive functioning skills, including remembering to do it all. Kids with ADHD have difficulty switching their attention from one action to another. But since parents and teachers are often completely unaware of the mental state of the child, they simply label it as laziness and reprimand the child. The same thing happens in case of children suffering from social anxiety. They refrain from participating in public events and often run away from crowded places just because they feel overwhelmed. And again, just like with ADHD, anxiety disorders are highly misunderstood and treated very poorly, and those children are reprimanded for being overly nervous. These children whose diseases were treated poorly grew up to become adults who are incapable of performing basic tasks in their professional life, and they become socially handicapped. Finally, when they go to seek therapy, they have to unwind all those years of pent up emotions and feelings. Let's just say it's not the most pleasant ordeal. Why go seek help when you're 35 when it could have been done when you were 15? In today's world, mental health of children is no longer an issue that can be ignored, as the cases of depression, ADHD, and anxiety among the younger generation is constantly on the rise. According to a research conducted by the Queensland University of Technology, out of a group of 460 adolescents, 20% were found to be suffering from serious social anxiety. Now, how can we help these children? The first step is to identify the signs. Let us understand this simple thing. No child suddenly wakes up one day and decides to be lazy or anxious all the time. So instead of reprimanding children for behaving in queer ways, parents need to communicate with them and make them feel comfortable enough to share their problems with them. It's important to be open to the idea that children might be suffering from mental health issues. Parents should not feel ashamed to seek help from professionals and understand the fact that if their child does get diagnosed with a mental illness, it does not make them a failure as a parent, but being in denial about their child's deteriorating mental state does. I personally believe that including simple lessons about coping with negative feelings, panic attacks, and anxiety in primary education would be of great help for both students and parents alike. Childhood is a very delicate phase, and any slight changes in the environment might affect the child's mental state. But with the help of supportive parents and teachers, it will be easier for them to cope with these problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tava. Uh, I think it's best to know about these issues from children themselves, and this is a very good opportunity for all of us to listen to such perspectives from all around the globe. Uh, so let us move on to our next participant, Muskan from DPS Patodi. Muskan.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Muskan. How are you?
I'm good, sir.
So you won't be able to switch on your camera, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no issues. So, Muskan, uh, we live in a very fast world nowadays, especially after the advent of technology and the space in which the world is growing, uh, or I would say the pace in which the world is shrinking. Uh, so when we deal with the fast pace of life, what are the effects of the struggle on our mental health? Over to you, Muskan.
Okay, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I am Muskan Dhankar from Delhi Public School, Patodi, Haryana. And today I would like to speak on the topic dealing with the fast pace of lives and its effect on mental health. All of us live incredibly fast paced lives. We commute to work, and for many people, the ride to work is getting longer as people move to more distant locations in the rural areas. The journey to work is complex. Drivers are faced with traffic accidents and jams that often cause lateness. Many employers are not sympathetic to the reasons for lateness. Instead of sympathy, they demand that people leave for work even earlier. Once at work, there are enormous pressures to be productive. The nature of many careers is that productivity includes the need to think creatively. However, it can be difficult to think creatively if someone is exhausted and stressed once they arrive at work. Also, people are now shifting from joint families to nuclear families as we don't get much time to spend with each other. Everyone gets busy in their own lives. Cultural changes have also affected our mental health. Due to globalization, we are adopting more of Western culture. More industries have come up. As a result, pollution levels are also increasing, which is negatively affecting our environment. More industries means more competition, which has made people more anxious as there is less emotional balance and more stress. Another factor that has made our life stressful is our move from humanware to software. Humans are now replaced by machines, due to which people are losing out employments, which leads to stress and anxiety. Stress also causes chronic diseases such as cardiovascular diseases and depression. Nowadays, people believe more in research and evidence, so subjects are becoming deeper and more research is being carried out. That's why lots of career options are there. At times, people get confused that which career is good for them and where they'll feel more interest. This confusion causes frustration and anger among teens and adults. In today's time, our schedule is so hectic that we are less aware of our mental health over physical health. Because our physical health is getting disturbed, it is also affecting our mental health. I think we have discussed many factors which causes stress and anxiety. So I have some self-care tips which will help us to stay a stress-free life. First, according to an article in September 2005 edition of Scientific American, it is suggested that in order to maintain the ability to be productive as well as creative, it is necessary to take a 20-minute break from work and go on a mental vacation. This means that you close your eyes and imagine yourself in the most relaxing, beautiful, and serene place that you can. In other words, this is a kind of self hypnosis or visual meditation that actually reduces the level of stress hormones excreted into the cardiovascular system, resulting in the reduction of stress and exhaustion. Second, treat yourself with kindness and respect and avoid self criticism. Make time for your hobbies and broaden your horizons. Third, taking care of yourself physically can improve your mental health. Be sure to eat nutritious meals, avoid smoking, drink plenty of water, exercise regularly, get enough sleep. Fourth, give yourself Volunteer your time and energy to help someone else. You'll feel good about doing something tangible to help someone in need. 5. Set realistic goals. Decide what you want to achieve academically, professionally, and personally, and write down the steps that you need to realize your goals. Aim high, but be realistic and do not overschedule. You'll enjoy a tremendous sense of accomplishment and self worth as you progress towards your goal. 6. Get help when you need it. Seeking help is a sign of strength, not a weakness, and it is important to remember that treatment is effective. People who get appropriate care can recover from mental illness and addiction and lead full, rewarding lives. Stop overthinking and give your stress wings and let it fly away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Muskan, for the wonderful tips on how to lead a stress-free life. Uh, Now let's move on to our next participant, Tanushree.
Hello,
Hi, Tanushree. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. So uh, Tanushree is from Nonsuch High School, UK. Uh, so Tanushree, now if we talk about the fast pace of life, the internet has played a large role in this, in making the world so fast-paced. So, what do you think are the effects of social media on personality development? And how important do you think is a digital detox for all of us?
Hello everyone. My name is Tanushree Nag, and I'm a student from the UK. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the guest speakers and judges for the insightful talks at the start, and a well done to all the participants so far. So, over the last 10 years, the algorithms of social networking sites have been meticulously sewn into the fabric of our lives, subconsciously altering our neurological systems and shaping our outlook on reality in the midst of this already information-filled era. This world is becoming a place where narcissism is plentiful, yet self-doubt overrules, and a time where conspiracy theories seem to get more attention than the real news, and the most sensationalist headlines guide the public's knowledge. Social media is the new digital drug designed to keep you scrolling for longer. Most people don't even know they're addicted before it's too late to turn back. With more and more people logging in, and the number of accounts on social media services increasing exponentially, it begs the question whether these services are dictating our lives more than we should let them. Today, I aim to uncover the darkness behind social networking and the global obsession behind this, and the link to the pandemic of psychological disorders like depression and anxiety by giving a personal and bird's eye view into the online world. Is social media truly the main culprit of this mental health crisis, or is there a larger reason at play? Should we really be having a global digital detox? It's easy to get sucked into the online world. We can find ourselves losing track of time looking at videos on YouTube, or doubt our own social lives when we're sitting at home scrolling through pictures of other people outside with their friends. This in turn can lead to feelings of loneliness and unhappiness, leading to the downwards trajectory of our mental health. Our personality develops through interactions with people around us. We pick up skills and attributes by looking at others. We are conditioned to be morally virtuous through the lessons we learn from real life experience, which leads to both our mental and spiritual development. So, instead of going down this spiral, we need to learn to log off our phones and meet in person with our friends and take some time to talk and build those long-lasting social skills. We yearn for likes, and our brains provide us with a dopamine rush every time we see our followers list number go up, much like a drug. Essentially, our brains are hardwired to seek these momentary pleasures. However, we eventually become desensitized to this and crave for more likes and more followers to create that same feeling. In short, our own brains are leading us to our downfall. So, Instead of trying so hard to pose for a perfect picture to show your holiday to all your followers, we need to learn to live in the moment. Immerse yourself in nature, for it is the biggest healer and has been known to help with mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. Marvel at the real world rather than getting lost in the virtual world. I feel saddened when I see young children spending countless hours on their parents' phones. What happened to the days where children were climbing trees and playing outside together? I think my parents were lucky, as their childhood was filled with temporary physical bruises, rather than permanent mental bruises left by this digital age. Childhood is a time where your neural pathways are being created through images and stimulations around you. We must set an example for the new generation by taking them away from their screens and raising awareness about the serious repercussions of allowing social media to hinder childhood development. A digital detox is quite similar to a mental detox. It only happens when a person voluntarily stops using their digital devices for a long period of time. It allows us to see the real world and appreciate its beauty. It lets us spend the precious time we have with the people who matter, not wasting it on temporary happiness, which leads to no gain. The other day, I went on a walk to the park with my mum, and it felt so good to finally back away from all the screen time I had from my online classes. The only way we can break out of this vicious cycle, which is leading us to sadness, is if we stop letting ourselves become victims of our screens and say no to endless hours of scrolling. We need to actively schedule in time away from our screens and start chasing experiences, not likes. We must learn to take a stand for ourselves and have digital detoxes when we see social media take a toll on our lives. It's the only way we can save this world from this new mental health crisis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanushree. And it's a weird situation that we have to talk about digital detox on this medium. It's quite ironical. So let us move on to our next participant, Ayush Biswas from Presidency School, Kasturi Nagar.
Yes.
Ayush?
Yes. So I will be talking about the effect of pop culture on our mental health. So what is culture? Let us go into that first. Pop culture is just a culture, but we are connected with everyone throughout the world. Before, there used to be a barrier that you can't go around and talk to the world whenever you want and wherever you are. But digitalization has helped us to break that barrier. So, first, we move on to what is culture. Culture is the mindset of people all around us, and it can change a person's belief, what they like, and their values. Pop culture, or popular culture in short, is transmitted through mass media. It's especially targeted at younger children. As pop culture is digital, it has no boundaries. It can often be confused with real life, and that's what affects children's mental health. As pop culture is accessible to all ages, uh, 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 irrelevant pop culture trends can often affect children's mental health. It's not all bad though. Pop culture can create a new sense of friendship amongst people, other people who have the same hobbies, interest, and other likings. But is pop culture taking over us? Are we thinking too much about how others feel about us? As per recent studies, after 2000, there has been an increased usage of social media and people going throughout the internet and mingling with other people. Uh,
And teenagers are actually a major part of that. As per studies, teenagers want to be like against the crowd and show to the world that they are different from the others. Some people can get so immersed into the pop culture that the fictional universe, it becomes difficult for them to distinguish between what's real and what's not. So in conclusion, I would like to say that uh, pop culture can help us become define who we are, and we should definitely not overuse it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ayush. Hope like nowadays we are looking for more followers and less leaders, it seems. Uh, so let us move on to our next participant, Mohammed Abdul from DPS Ajman, UAE. Hi, Abdul.
Hi, sir. How are you?
How are you?
I'm fine.
Abdul, let's talk about stereotypes. Since we are talking about pop culture, popular culture, let's talk about stereotypes that are associated with the mental health of men, but in
Yes,
particular.
sir. I agree.
Yeah.
It's a very important topic. Firstly, I would like to thank the DPS Horror family for initiating this webinar for Every Mind Matters. It's a very important topic which I don't think goes around a lot in this generation. I would like to begin with a quote. Depression isn't a war you win, it is a battle you fight every day. You never stop, never to get rest. It's one fight after another. It was given by Sean David Hutchinson. There are many stereotypes surrounding men regarding their mental health, and these misconceptions can be extremely detrimental. They can make a person feel trapped and lonely, keeping them from reaching out and accessing the aid they need to start feeling better. Generally, all adults are taught at a fairly young age to believe that gender roles between men and women are distinct. Men are always taught to act and exist in a certain way, to be masculine, strong, and not to reveal their feelings and pretend to be in control of a situation. This expectation and shame, however, puts a lot of mental strain on men. Additionally, since vulnerability is discouraged, men often fail to communicate at an emotional level. As those around them are not likely to be helpful, they remain silent. They feel as though, even if they speak, friends and family would not be responsive, consequently leading to further trauma. Hiding feelings for a very long time will make it difficult for men to crack down barriers, open up to others, and get the support that they need. Men need to process their feelings and ask help when they need to. It's important for men to realize that taking off the mask and accepting their insecurity is an extremely courageous thing to do, rather than being seen as an act of weakness. For both men and women alike, it's okay to not be okay. In order to recognize when help is needed for depression, a few common signs and symptoms men need to be aware of are low mood and intense sadness, feeling anxious and restless, becoming angry and frustrated over minor things, difficulty sleeping or sleeping more than usual, constant tiredness, loss or increase of appetite, unable to cope in your daily life, difficulty concentrating, and loss of interest in typical activities, which need to be noticed by other family members also. But what can we do about this? We should create an atmosphere for our children that enables emotional growth and allows their mental maturity to develop. In open and honest dialogue, we must check up on men in our lives and allow them to speak about their emotional and mental well being. We can encourage healthy habits, including sleeping, exercise, and proper nutrition, that promote good mental health. And most importantly, we must guarantee that they have access to knowledge about the resources available and offer to assist them. That's all. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Abdul. Uh, let's move on to our next and final participant for the evening, uh, Tisha Pratipati from DPS Bangalore North.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So, as it is said, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Every dark cloud has a silver lining, and hope is what keeps us alive.
Yes,
So,
sir.
in the
So I'd
end,
like to start off by saying good evening to one and all present here. My name is Disha from DPS Bangalore North, and I'm here to talk to you all about what we as members of our society can do to take care of the mental well-being of the people around us. So firstly, I want to start off by just clarifying the difference between sympathy and empathy, as they are similar and often easy to confuse. So sympathy is the feeling of sorrow or pity for someone in an unfortunate situation, whereas empathy is experiencing what the other person is feeling, being compassionate, genuinely offering them help and being there for them, rather than being a bystander and merely having the thought of helping but not acting on it. So, empathy drives connection, but sympathy often comes off as patronizing and doesn't necessarily help the other person in that situation. So, in today's world, especially in this crucial time of COVID, building empathy is really important for people of all ages and walks of life. Some of the few things that we can do are firstly, if someone seems bothered or troubled by something, try putting yourself in their shoes. So the phrase is cliche, yes, but more than wearing their shoes, try walking in them. It helps in magnitudes in really understanding what the other person is going through. Try understanding your parents, your children, your peers, teachers. Try to understand the effect that their busy schedule may have, the pending work with deadlines that might be looming over their heads. It might be strained interpersonal relationships. It could be internal conflict. It can literally be anything. Try to understand why they're stressed or upset. Secondly, try to make yourself available to talk to them. Try to put out some time away for the people around you and engage them in conversation. Even if you don't usually do it, try making it a habit. Their comfort and trust in you will build over time, and they'll be more likely to approach you if something's bothering them first. So try partaking in activities with them and just generally spending more time with each other. Thirdly, try to induce self growth and innate happiness. Help people make a routine to achieve their goals, or provide a medium for them to channelize their energy healthily in a manner that they want to and enjoy, that's not pressurizing. So try to give them a sense of autonomy where they are free to grow as an individual, think for themselves, and choose what they want, free of coercion. Please don't dismiss emotions, as it will lead to them feeling worse and will also damage the trust between you and them. So try to communicate, even if you cannot understand what they are going through. Lend a ear for them and to talk to. Simply listening to someone talk can give them clarity of thought and reduce their anxiety and stress. So, along with that, you can also help them find healthy coping mechanisms for dealing with stressful and taxing situations in their life. Consistently dealing with situations healthily is vital and can really help someone's mental well being. So, the next thing I will be talking about is media and its effect on development of empathy. So, some of the negative effects are there's a term called compassion fatigue, which is a common phenomenon in which an individual becomes numb to tragic events as a result of frequently seeing it. So, our brains can only handle so much emotional stress, and when we have constant access to these traumas, they become so overbearing that our brain actually shuts them out and starts blocking these events. So, this phenomenon has always existed, but the emergence of technology has just enhanced it, making people less empathetic in general. Secondly, even though social media might facilitate making new friends and connecting with others online, this might not necessarily lead to enhanced social skills during offline interactions, as spending time online only displaces the time that you are supposed to spend with people offline, which can lead to social skills deteriorating over time. There is also reduced non-verbal cues now. So this may hinder empathy because it makes it difficult to tell how a person is really feeling without seeing that facial, expressions or body posture. Now, I don't want to imply that media only has a negative effect. So like everything, it has both its pros and cons. Media is often an easy target to blame or give credit to, but it is merely a medium at the end of the day. And the influence it has on us is minute in the concept of developing empathy. How we behave ultimately rests on us. So there are plenty of positive effects as well, such as instilling feelings of togetherness and empowerment through advertisements, which in turn has a positive effect on empathy. There are also plenty of crowdfunding initiatives that have helped countless people around the globe in their missions and has really encouraged people to be more caring and helpful and to support causes of all kinds. So media also has a huge outreach to people like nothing else, spreading positivity very easily. Anyone with net connectivity can overcome the limitations of geographical boundaries. Creating awareness for various social issues and instilling empathy in people of all communities becomes easier. Media, without a doubt, has a very influential role. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to be more empathetic and put a conscious effort into helping the people around us. Being empathetic needs to be a way of life, and that's possible when we start very young. Our family, school, and the society at large needs to show and practice empathy. So I would like to conclude by saying that a society is what we make of it, how open we are to accommodating and supporting each other. It's our individual responsibility to create a communal and harmonious environment. Thank you for listening and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Tisha. So now I would like to welcome our judges to like to share the insights on the discussions that have happened today. Uh, Miss Rashmi Mantri. Hello, ma'am.
Thank you, Palash. Thank you. I hope I'm naming you correct. I hope. Palash, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I was listening to all the speakers, and I must say one thing, that while listening to them, the deliberations, what occurred to me that there is so much that the younger generation and this generation in particular has to offer. And then we can rest assured that we are, and generations to come are in very safe hands, because the level of awareness that these children have, and to elaborate on the multifaceted topics that these people have taken. And not just that, each topic is so pertinent to the whole idea of, mental well-being right from the beginning. And forgive me if I am going anywhere wrong with your names, but Ishaan was there, who spoke about how important it is to so-called normalize the mental health, right? Sohan rather. And, normalcy in itself is a fallacy, if we say it like that, because there's nothing called normalcy in life. Everything is subject to, as we say, the journey which is within us. So the best journey is when you take a journey inside you. And that is what is very imperative. When it came to the child, I think Ishaan Banerjee spoke about how important it is for men to know about menstruation. I think he touched a chord to every woman, every female panelist over here, every female member over here, because this is something which needs to become the need of the hour. And taking it from there, how it is related to mental health in our country and most of the places in the world, people don't even know that most women experience PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And that is something so common. 80% of the women suffer it, but they never know about it in their lifetime. And caricature is being done when it is referred as PMSing. I am PMSing. But this whole PMSing is so very detrimental to the health of a female. And if men wake up to it, and if all of us, for that matter, not just men, but let's not just keep it stereotype. Even women need to know about it, because most women don't know about it, that there's something called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which leads to acute anxiety and depression to the extent that the suicidal rates are also very high pertaining to this disorder. So thank you, Essen, because you really took up a topic which is so very important. You touched a chord there for all of us. And I must say, some of the speakers, Aditya, what you said is so correct. When life gives you lemon, make lemonades. So on that very positive note, distancing, be it social or physical, is in itself a detriment, is in itself imperative, which we have to take these days because of the pandemic. But then let there be no distances between the hearts. Let there be no distances when it comes to interactions. Let there be uninhibited, unashamed conversations like we are doing it right now. And I think that will really take us a long way as a human civilization. Ishaan, the well-researched and so very articulate meticulous way you have described the whole issue about mental health, mental well-being of people working in hospitals, not just during the pandemic, but even in regular situations, even on an every day-to-day basis. And the research and the way you have demonstrated and kind of explained and elucidated on the whole thing is really very, very impressive. And I must say, there's always that one speaker who kind of, takes us into a different zone and touches our imagination. Tanushri, you have touched something which is so very important for all of us to understand, that in the times today where we are becoming so very controlled by the bots. So it is the bots, the algorithms, as you said, they are the ones who are controlling us. Gone are the days of Silicon Valley, wherein we used to deal with, hardwares, computers, keyboards. Now, the social media doesn't deal with hardwares. They deal with us, with you, with me. We are the products now. And the biggest product is the time which we give. So our time, the more we spend on the social media, is actually being used for the commercial successes of these so-called networkings and the so-called digital world that we are into, the digital jungle that I would say rather. So Tanushri, so correctly and so beautifully you have pointed out the social dilemma that all of us are facing, and it is very, very important to digitally detoxify. And on that note, thanks a lot to all the speakers. You people have really enlightened me, and there's so much to learn from you all. So thank you so much. And Palash, over to you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Uh, I would like to move on to our next judge, Dr. Kanchan Ramachandran. Ma'am.
Hi everyone.
Hi, ma'am.
Thank you, DPS Howrah and the organization and participants for such a wonderful program. My fellow panelists would agree with me that this has indeed been a difficult task for us, since to score young persons who deliver talks on subjects that are relevant, pertinent, and indeed the need of the hour. For me, I have something to take home from what every participant said, and I would like to take the time to say one or two things, of course. But when Sohan started off with it is okay not to be okay, it really rings a bell, right? As in this situation, everybody's talking about it, but really, how much are we doing about it? I am part of a profession where the stigma is not to do with just people; it's also to do with the people who take up this profession. Even in my class of MBBS students, I was the only one in 245 people who took up this profession even. So the stigma doesn't exist with just people or those who are not connected to the profession, but everybody, as in there is such a taboo and it exists even today. Ishaan, really the education of men in tandem with men, women and men together. I think that is so important, because I don't think I have spoken about menstruation to people in my family who are not women. And that is something that should start really young, and it does help a lot to empathize. When Debopriya spoke about Coronaphobia, she was so structured in her assessment of what a phobia is. There is a physiological component, there is a cognitive component, there is a behavioral component, and it was absolutely apt. And I think that was a wonderful presentation as well. Sunidhi spoke about fake specialists and misdiagnosis. Sunidhi, you're a wonderful, wonderful speaker. And yes, there are a lot of fake specialists out there, and it helps for us to be able to identify. When I sit in the clinic, a whole lot of people come with Google, and it takes me at least the first 10 to 15 minutes to talk about maybe Google's not the only solution, but I think it's very important that everybody goes to the right people, because guidance is everything and the direction is everything. Tisha spoke about loneliness among elderly. I've worked in the dementia unit, and it is a sad place out there, especially because one thing is COVID has affected the elderly much more than it has affected people who are younger. And with the whole idea of people isolating, it has indeed been a hard struggle. They lose their spouses, and one of the things we talk about stress is that it's the hardest when you lose a spouse, and quite a few mental health disorders in the elderly. Thank you for raising that subject. Aditya spoke about the boon and the bane of lockdown, the bittersweet situation, the lemons. I would definitely take home what you said about that. Ishaan spoke about the well-being of those in hospitals. Now that rings a bell because that's where I've been all along, and it has not been an easy situation. PPs has been one thing. The other thing is support. There is a burnout in the system. There are people who are mental health professionals and other professionals in the hospital who are seeing their colleagues really ill, especially in the UK at this point of time. It is in a pretty bad condition as of now. It rang a bell and it struck a chord. Thank you, Ishaan. Durba spoke about the issues in child and adolescent psychiatry, and there are quite a few things: ADHD, anxiety. I think you really touched upon quite important topics that one has to start off quite early. It's not just recognition among teachers and parents. There is a lot more that needs to go in terms of the health of children and adolescents, especially. Muskan, sorry, we couldn't see you. Would have loved to see you, but it was nice that you spoke about the fast pace of life and you gave us some really good tips about how to lead a stress-free life. Tanushree, you brought upon a very, very important topic, and the darkness and the obsessions of social media, and some of the solutions that you've offered are truly something that we need to be mindful about and take home. Ayush, very adorably, you spoke about the influence of pop culture in mental health. Abdul, you spoke about, and it opened our eyes about quite a few stereotypes of mental health in men. Disha, very nicely put together what sympathy and empathy is, and people generally just mix them up. Compassion fatigue, that's something many of us feel, and I'm glad you raised that topic as well. All in all, I wish all the participants the best. Well done, guys have done a brilliant job. This could be a competition, but trust me, this is a win-win situation for the future of mental health. I wish all of you the best, and honestly, I do hope some of you take up the noble profession of being a mental health professionals, and I'd like to see you as colleagues one day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to welcome Shantani, ma'am, to
Yeah.
share her.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much, DPS Howrah, for inviting me. And I'm so glad that I took the invitation. And hearing you all is actually a very, very glad opportunity for me. All of you spoke so well that, as I can agree with my fellow panelists, that I was in a different zone. And I must say that I like the topics very, very well. It was so diverse, and you have almost covered all the aspects of mental health profession. So it's a very good opportunity for me to hear so young minds speaking about all the different topics, and so with well versed, well researched, and well aware. Last day I was talking to one of my colleagues that we used to have an information about mental health, but now this corona pandemic is actually letting us to experience mental health in a very different manner. So we know what is ABCD, but we are actually now reading what is ABCD. We are making sentences out of it. So I would like to start with Sohan. Sohan, you are very good and well researched about how actually different aspects of media and our culture and society is affecting the mental health and stigmatizing the mental health, where we need to normalize mental health in a very lucid platform. Okay, now when I actually saw Ishaan, I think it's Ishaan or Ishaan, I'm pronouncing it well or not, I don't know. I was very surprised to see that a boy is talking about menstruation. That was my first impression about you, that it was very well commended. that we as a girl and we as a woman are very much in a dilemma to talk about menstruation. But it's very commendable and courageous for you that as a male, you are talking about menstruation and highlighting the very important points that what challenges we would like to face. Debopriya, it was very well hearing you. You talked about various types of anxieties, fears, and it looks like that you have actually well researched about the topics at what Coronaphobia is. Okay, and moving on to Sunidhi. Sunidhi, I liked your activity part very much. You actually made the audience understood about the different differences between reality and perception. So that was a very good thing. Moving on to Tista. Tista, you have touched a very right chord in our society, talking about the loneliness of elderly population. I would like to say that alone and being lonely are two different things. Many of the people can be lonely in the society, but being alone from here is a different thing. So even we are living in a jungle of humans, still we can be lonely and alone from here and here. Aditya, it's really very good. When I was hearing you, each and every time I was thinking of that picture Wally, which won an Oscar, where there was no human interaction, there was no physical contact, and still we are communicating with each other. So how important physical contact, warmth, and human interaction is. You touch the right chord. Ishaan, your topic is will always be very close to my heart because I work in a hospital, and you have well researched about the mental health, what we are going through while working in hospitals and what we have faced, that kind of challenges we are being. Durba, it's a very good to listen to you where you talked about different kinds of aspects and different kinds of stereotypes which is affecting our society. Muskan, again, I would like to see your face once. Then you have talked about very serious topic, that how stress and anxiety, and specifically you have talked about work stress, how it is affecting our mental health. Tanushri, your topic, you spoke very emotionally actually. And I liked how you are actually highlighting the social dilemma about social media, that it's a kind of a food that we are eating, but it is somehow not being getting digested in our stomach. So yes, it was very well versed and well researched. Ayush, you have rightly talked about the pop culture and also its pros and cons, the advantages and disadvantages, how it is affecting our mental health. Muhammad Abdul, you have also talked about various kinds of stereotypes, and you have actually researched about very uncommon stereotypes specifically, I have heard, which is affecting specifically in the male gender. And Disha, it was also very nice in hearing you. You have all very truly emphasized about the difference between sympathy and empathy. So yes, all the best to all of you. I absolutely agree with my fellow panelists that I'm in a dilemma that whoever wins, that doesn't mean that all of you are not good. So we have to choose someone as a participant, but yeah, all of you are well done, very well.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you everyone present here for your insights, for your perspectives on so many relevant and pertinent topics. With this, I would like to call upon Meeta ma'am to conclude this session. Over to you, Meeta ma'am.
Yes, Palash. Actually, sorry, I am outside, but yes, I was continuously listening to the session. On behalf of the DPS Hara family, the first and foremost important thing that I would say is that they were excellent speakers, and they have highlighted on topics which are very, very pertinent on today's issues, touching upon the very important issue of mental health, positive mental health. And I would also thank respected judges who have commented so intricately and appropriately and have appreciated each of the speakers who have done their bit today. Palash, thank you very much for moderating all the issues and all connecting each participant so well. And ultimately, I would like to finally thank the Proyas community who has helped us connect students from United Kingdom. And of course, we are very grateful to the students who have done their bit and made this session so very meaningful. Thank you. And